Shalom Aleichem Rabotai, Happy Hanukkah. It is Koach Kislev, and Mishnah Yomi is holding in the 11th parak, the 11th chapter of Shabbat at Mishnah Vav. Hazorik, somebody throws an item in Rosh Hashanah. He's standing in Rosh Hashanah, and he's throwing in Rosh Hashanah, and as we've learned, his intention is to throw at least 4 amos. But what happens in this case? V'nizkar la'achar sheyatzta miyado, and he realizes, nizkar means remembered, like zachor, but he realizes, oh my gosh, it's Shabbos after the item has already left his hand. As we're going to see in this Mishnah, Rabotai, this means that not all of his malacha was done in a situation of shogeg, of mistake. So a person is chayev achata to bring a karban to atone for his breaching of the Sabbath if he was mistaken during the entire malacha, as this Mishnah will explain. Maybe he didn't know it was forbidden, or he didn't know today was Shabbat, he didn't remember. So here he's thrown the item and it's still in the air, and he realizes, oh my gosh, that was a forbidden act, or he realizes, oh my gosh, today was Shabbat. And the Mishnah brings other variations, klota acher, or another person catches it. So instead of it going the 4 amot and just landing on the ground as he intended, somebody stuck up his baseball glove and caught the item, or klota kelev, or the dog caught it. It was a stick, it was a frisbee, and the dog jumped up and Baruch Hashem did like a dog does and grabs it. Or nisrafa, or it was burnt up. It was thrown, and all of a sudden there was an oven or a fireplace that, the fire got very hot underneath and it burned up the stick. Potter. In all of these cases, he's potter. Now, the Bartner explains that there are 2 different scenarios here. The first one, as I mentioned, where he remembers in the middle, he realizes while the item's there, oh my gosh, it's Shabbos. So if he does so, then he's not entirely b'shogeg. He was shogeg at the beginning. He was mistaken at the beginning about the act or about the day it was when he threw the item, but in the middle of the air, he realizes. So it's not the entire malacha in state of shogeg. And as the Gemara explains, the Bartner cites the Gemara, Ad she tiloton v'sofan bishkoga. A person's not chayev a korban chatat on breaching the Sabbath until the beginning and the end of the act was in a state of shigoga, of shogeg, of unawareness or inadvertentness. And these other cases, even if he was unaware the entire time, but somebody else interrupted his act, the dog or the person or the fire, so we have a concept we've seen before by 2 people carrying out the giant loaf of bread, shnaim shasuha paturin. So in that case, if they're carrying out a very big piece of bread, they needed 2 people, they'd be chayev, but if they're carrying out one small piece of bread that only one person was needed, they'd be patur, because shnaim shasu paturin, 2 people who did one act, they are patur. It's only when one person does the act by himself from beginning to end, in a state of shogeg from beginning to end, then he's chayev achatat. Now the Mishnah brings a variation here. Zorok, he threw an item like a rock, lasot chabura, to make a wound. His intention was to hurt someone. Bein ba'adam, bein behema, to scare away a person or an animal. V'nizkar, and then he realizes, oops, I can't make a wound, it's Shabbos. Ad shelo naseh chabura, before the wound was made, potter. So here he realizes that it's forbidden to wound someone or something on Shabbos. So then again, he's potter because not the entire action is done in a state of shogeg. Now the Mishnah summarizes, Zeh haklol, this is the general principle, kol chayve chataut, anything that's chayev achatas, einan chayavin od tilotan v'sofan shgoga. He's not chayev until the beginning and the end of the act was done in a state of inadvertentness or unawareness. Now, this is a general concept for all of the malachot, not just carrying. And the Mishnah continues, Tilotan shkaga sofan zodun, if the beginning was mistaken and the end was on purpose, Tilotan zodun sofan shkaga, or vice versa, Peturin, he's pater, I should say, Tilotan v'sofan shkaga. He's pater until the entire act was in a state of shogeg. Great, on to the 12th parak. Okay, parak Yud Beis, Mishnah Olav, Haboneh, someone who builds. What is the requisite shear of building to be chayev? Kama yivne, how much? V'hei chayev. Habone koshu, that's any amount. Even filling in a little crack in the wall would be enough binyan to be chayev a korban chatat. Hamsotet, one who chisels. The Bartner says he's squaring off a rock. He's making a rock into the proper shape. Hamoke b'potish, or someone who's striking the hammer blow. The Bartner again explains this is an act of quarrying. They would cut around a stone and then hit the stone while still attached to the side of the quarry with the hammer, so it would fall down. Other people understand makeh b'potish, understand generally in the Gemara to mean sort of the finishing touch, or the final strike that finishes a kli. Matzad, or he's hitting it with an adz. I think matzad and adz, A-D-Z-E, are similar cognate words. He's also striking it with this kind of hatchet to break it off the quarry. A kodeach, someone who drills. Kol shehu, any amount, is chayev. It is interesting. We're right in the middle of Hanukkah, and there's a Gemara in Avodah Zarah 52b that talks about the Hashmonaim rebuilt. They unbuilt the Mizbeach that was defiled by the Greeks, and they rebuilt a new Mizbeach. So these malachot of quarrying stones and smoothing stones, chiseling them into the right shape, though we didn't use chisels, we didn't use iron tools on the stones of the Mizbeach, they may have still had the shamir to cut the stones without using metal tools. So all of these malachot were needed for the Hashmonayim to rebuild and rededicate the Mizbeach during the Hanukkah. Anyway, the Mishnah continues, Klal, here's the general rule about building. Kol esem melacha, someone who does a creative act, melachtu mitkayemet b'Shabbat, and it's a lasting fix. It's not just a piece of duct tape. It's, he's actually building something, chayev. Then he's chayev achatat. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel adds on, Afa make bekornas alaston b'shat malacha. Even someone who's hitting with his hammer on the anvil while he's working, chayev. He's still chayev. Now, that's a bit of a chiddush. He explains, mipnei shu mitaken malacha, because he's fixing the work. So what is he doing? He's hammering a thin sheet of metal. Like for the Mishkan, for the tabernacle, they would have these sheets of gold that they would cut into strings, knit of strings of gold in some of the kelim. And so he's hammering gold very, very flat. But if you keep hammering, well, your hammer changes shape. We're not talking about a processed steel hammer. We're talking about like a brass hammer, copper hammer. It's going to change shape also and then mess up the material you're hammering. So you have to hit the hammer on a very hard anvil to flatten out the surface so you can continue working. So Shimon Gamliel says even though you're not hitting the hammer on the work itself, but on the item to flatten out the face of the hammer to be able to continue working properly, he says that's chayev, but halach is not like Shimon Gamliel.